Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here to present our recent work on Bayesian recommendation with low regret. My name is Wei Tang, and I recently graduated from the Washington University, and will be studying a postdoc at Columbia University. So this is a joint work with Yiding, Feng at Microsoft Research and Haifeng at University of Chicago. I believe they are also in the audience. So as you can see from the title, the motivation of this work coming from the recommendation systems. And so indeed, the online recommendation platforms have been generating huge revenue to our world. For example, the product recommendation systems like the Amazon has been reporting the increasing revenue over the past 18 years. And the ad revenue in TikTok even crossed 3 billion last year, and is also expected to be increasing in the following years. So given these huge profits, it is important for us to understand how these platforms interact with their users. So let me use short video recommendation as a running example in this talk. For example, in TikTok, TikTok is a very popular social media that used by the young people. And so it has been reported that there are over 1 billion active users on TikTok. And in average, each user will use almost 1 hour per day. And also, the average length of the TikTok video is only 7 to 15 seconds. So behind of this data, there is a trademark feature of the TikTok is that the For You page, which is a collection of the videos that will be recommended to users in a real-time manner. So how should TikTok recommend videos to users in a real-time manner? So I want to note that whether the user is interested in a video depends not only on user's preference, but also the video information. So the user preference could be something like whether this user like sport video or music video. And the video information could be something like the video hashtags, the video content, video sounds, or any other useful video characteristics. And I also want to highlight 2 important features here. So usually, the user is pretty certain about their preference, but not uncertain about, uncertain about the video information. And on the other hand, the platform knows pretty well about their video information, but uncertain about the user preference. So in other words, there is a two-sided information asymmetry between the platform and the users. And second, the recommendation decisions made by the platform is adaptively formed through the interaction history with the users. So this interaction history not only reveals the information about the user's preference, but also the video information. So the goal of this paper is trying to answer the question like, how should the platform achieve the optimal recommendation, given this two-sided information asymmetry between the platform and users in the long run? And in this talk, I will try to answer this question by first presenting our problem formulation and mention the main results plus a little bit high-level algorithm descriptions. So let me begin with our model. And in this work, we consider Bayesian model where we assume that the payoff relevant video information is captured by a random state of the video. In particular, the video state will be realized according to a public prior distribution. And as we mentioned earlier, there is an information asymmetry between the platform and the users. So here we will assume that only the platform can observe the realized video state. In other words, only the platform knows the video information. So given these information advantages, the platform can actually design a signal scheme to signal the video state to the user. So you can think about this signal scheme is like how to recommend a particular video to the users. For example, it could be something highly recommend or standard recommend, etc. And so even though the platform knows the video information, the platform does not know the user's preference. So in order to achieve optimal recommendation, the platform needs to know the user's preference through its interactions with the users. And in this work, we assume that the platform is sequentially interacting with the users that are coming from a population of the users with the same preference. I want to highlight 2 points about this assumption. So With this assumption, we believe the technique at the insights developed under this assumption should be, might be applicable for more practical scenarios. And also, this assumption is pretty well motivated if you recall back the TikTok example, where the TikTok needs to decide how to recommend videos during the user's 1 hour stay in the TikTok. So more specifically, at each time around, the platform needs to decide a single scheme with a particular single space, and then a video will be realized, and a signal will be generated according to this single scheme with the video state, and then sent to the user. So after seeing the signal, the user will form a Bayesian posterior, and then select an action that maximizes her expected utility. And then users will get utility that depends on her personal preference and the action he chooses. And the platform only gets a utility if the users choose to watch this video. So in this talk, I will focus on this simple scenario, but our results in the paper also can also be generalized to the case where the platform has a utility that depends on video states. And we also allow the user to have some unknown misspecified prior beliefs about the video states. Okay, so the platform wants to minimize the regret, which compares the performance of the algorithm and the performance of the optimal single scheme handset. So here UPy denotes the platform's expected utility from a particular single scheme, and the pi star is the optimal single scheme in handset, which I will explain it shortly. So the first main result of this paper is that we show there exists algorithms that can achieve the expected regrets with log t dependency, but has exponential dependency on the number of states, the video states. And we achieve this result by building a connection to a well-studied dynamic pricing problem. But as we will show later, our problem is a little bit harder than dynamic pricing problem. So our second algorithm kind of highlights this difference. And we show that there exists another algorithm that can achieve polynomial dependency on the number of states, but sacrifice a bit on the time dependency, which is log t here. And finally, we also provide a lower bound to show that low algorithm can achieve the beta regrets, can achieve the regret bound better than the log t dependency. And this even holds for the binary states. I'm not going to go through the proof of the lower bound, but the takeaway message behind the proof of lower bound is that when the platform knows the receiver preference, a revelation principle says that two signals are enough to achieve optimal recommendation. But since the platform does not know the the user's preference, which means the revelation principle cannot be directly applied here. But even though we show that introducing more than two signals cannot improve your regret dependency on the time horizon. And also, yeah, this lower bound also confirms the tightness of our first algorithm with log t dependency. So before I proceed to describe our algorithm, let me use one more slide to discuss what is optimal single scheme in handset. So recall that if the platform knows the user's preference, then a revelation principle says that you can, without loss, to consider a single scheme, where the single space is just the user's action space. And then you can show that the optimal single scheme must be persuasive, in the sense that it is always user's best interest to follow the recommendation realized by the platform. And so to describe the structure of optimal single scheme, let me use one more notation, omega I here, to denote the user's preference difference on the realized state I. So omega I basically captures how much the user will prefer to watch the video than skip the video, given the current state I. So with this notation, we can show that the optimal single scheme will follow a threshold structure, where you will first sort the video states in a decreasing order of the user's preference difference. And then you can show that there exists a threshold state I sort here, such that for all states above this threshold states, you always recommend the action watch. And for the states that are below this threshold state, you always recommend the action skip. And you only randomize your recommendations at the threshold states. Okay, So the threshold state at the probability for recommended action watch on the threshold state is chosen such that the user will be indifferent on the watch at the skip. So yeah, so how should the TikTok recommend the videos to the users? So to answer this question, we can first try to think about this hypothetical scenario. Where suppose that the platform magically knows the order of the receiver preference and also even knows the threshold states. Okay, so recall that the optimal single scheme must be persuasive, right? So let's also suppose the platform can immediately know whether the particular single scheme is persuasive or not. Then the only thing the platform needs to learn is just this single value on the probability to recommend the action watch and the threshold state. Okay. So basically, when this scalar value p is smaller than the optimal value, then your single scheme will be persuasive. Otherwise, it will be non-persuasive. And you can see that the payoff of the expected payoff of this threshold single scheme will exactly equal to the probability to recommend the action watch as long as this single scheme is persuasive. So this actually reflects a symmetry payoff structure if you write down the expected payoff. And the expected payoff will certainly drop to 0 when your single scheme becomes non-persuasive. And this asymmetry payoff structure actually is very similar to the one in dynamic pricing. So, and indeed, in 2003, Robert Kernberg and Tom Lightham proposed the algorithm, which I call the refined by research here, to achieve the log T regret. And the algorithm is pretty cute, so let me briefly explain it. So suppose now you have managed to know the true buyer value is between the zeros at epsilon. And then I can start to price my product from epsilon square and at 2 times epsilon square until I get a reject. And then I can shrink my knowledge set to this smaller subinterval, which has a length of epsilon square. And as we can see that in each phase, there will at most one or epsilon accept, and where the buyer will buy your product. And each accept will have most regret of epsilon because your distance between your price and the optimal price is at most epsilon. And also is at most one reject. So putting together, you have a constant regret in each phase. And then there are in total log T phase to achieve 1 over T approximation of price. So this is log T regrets. So under this hypothetical scenario, we can simply run this refined binary search on this scalar P to achieve log T regret. But in our problem, the platform does not know the user's preference. So the platform does not know the user's preference difference later on the threshold state. And also, the platform even cannot check the persuasiveness of a single scheme immediately. So to see this, if you recall back the threshold single scheme we just saw in last slides, so whenever the platform recommends action skip, the user will know that this recommendation will be coming from the bad states, which means the user will always choose the action skip, no matter whether your single scheme is persuasive or not. In other words, the platform cannot obtain any useful information. So even with these difficulties, we choose that with additional treatments on the refined binary search, we can still achieve log T regrets. In particular, we just enumerate all possible state orders, and we adaptively drop the bad orders in the learning process. And for the second difficulty, we just have a binary search on the payoff space as a pre-processing step to bound below the probability to check the persuasiveness. And then we can achieve this regret bound. So the exponential dependence on the number of states exactly coming from the exponential number of state orders. Okay, so I don't have time to go through our second algorithm, but the idea is pretty straightforward. So our second algorithm starts with the observation that if the platform knows the receiver preference, then the optimal single scheme handset can be simply computed from this linear program. But in our problem, the platform does not know the user's preference, which leads to the platform have a linear program with unknown constraint. However, as we can show that all persuasive signal scheme must form an unknown convex polytope. And what the platform can do is the platform can issue a single scheme at each time around, and to check the persuasiveness of this single scheme. And in other words, the platform actually have a membership oracle access to this unknown convex polytope. But remember that the platform does not have the internal point, so standard techniques in membership oracle cannot be applied here. So the key algorithmic ingredients in our second algorithm is that you can first try to find the internal point, and then apply any membership oracle you like, and then you get this regular bounds. Just to summarize, we actually study a online Bayesian persuasion problem, which we formulated as an online Bayesian recommendation problem with binary action. And we provide two algorithms with two regular bounds, and we provide a lower bound on the title list of the time horizon T. And I highlight three important directions of our work, and I think the most important one is the third one. So we have been discussing how to recommend a particular video to the users. But beyond this, the platform needs to decide which video should be recommended to users from the pool of available videos. So this actually relates to a matching problem with like how the platform utilizes his information advantage to have a more profitable matching or something like this. Yeah, that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wei. So we have time for a question. Rod, I guess you were first.
So first of all, very nice talk.
Thank you.
So if you think about a state as kind of like a context, is there any formal connection between this and like high-dimensional contextual search?
Oh yeah, that's actually a very great question. So if you look at our problem is actually very similar to the contextual dynamic pricing. So you can interpret the prior of the state is actually a context. But what we have here is we don't have a separation oracle here. We only have a membership oracle here. So it's kind of hard to use the technique in contextual dynamic pricing to solve our problem. Yeah. I hope.
Okay.
Very interesting model, but when I think about the theoretical model and what happened in practice, I kind of feel a mismatch. So in practice, when like people do recommendation, they will choose. I guess they will choose a video from the pool of video and directly recommend to the users, and then users will directly watch it. But in your online learning model, it seems like the video are coming exogenously, so its type is realized from some distribution which is not controlled by the platform. So I don't know whether
that's a good question. So so here we assume that the video is exogenous realized from a prior distribution. So one explanation I can think of is you can think about there are many videos that are sponsored by some different companies, and they have some requirements that you have to display some sponsored videos according to some criteria, something like this. Yeah, but I believe I think that would be interesting if you think about what if the video coming in a adversarial manner or something like this.
Just a comment. I mean, if you really think about the application, the first thing I would question is the commitment assumption. So you go to TikTok, do you know there's signaling a scheme to?
Okay, so since we're running about 5 minutes late already, and I'm sure people are anxious to go get dinner, maybe we can take the remaining questions offline. So let's thank all the speakers again.